In life, two things can be true. 5 years ago, I wanted the Buffalo Bills to move on from Sean McDermott. I felt like that he was a good coach, but he wasn't going to necessarily get them over the hump to win a Super Bowl. I wanted them to promote then offensive coordinator Brian Dable to the head coaching position. Now, well, I do think it's time, and Sean McDermott obviously did not get the job done in Buffalo. And obviously, this year was without the Chiefs, it was without the Ravens, it was without the Bengals. You felt like even as a sixth seed with all the young quarterbacks in the tournament, it was the Bills' best chance to win a Super Bowl. However, I do feel bad for Sean McDermott because no coach should go out the way he did because I truly believe the officials decided the game. I truly do feel like, and again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, guys, not at all, but I truly do think, and I love gambling. Don't get me wrong. You guys know I do Brandon's best bets on this show every single week. But I think between the gambling sponsors, the weird last second call timeout backdoor covers, the weird inconsistent officiating, the NFL has had a terrible year for end of game situations. And I'm sorry, in this postseason, the NFL has decided to let a lot of plays go unless it is clear and obvious they have not called pass interference. I disagree that the call on Tre'Davious White was pass interference. Did he make contact with the Broncos receiver? Yes, he did. Did he significantly hinder or pull the Broncos receiver, which is the rule of pass interference? No, I do not believe he did. And when it comes to the catch fumble play, I'm sorry for the end of time. That play, and obviously the missed pass interference play in the 2018 NFC Championship game between the Rams and Saints will be played till the end of time. But in my opinion, Brandin Cooks catches the ball, his knee hits, he is contacted by the Denver receiver, and at that point, he does have possession of the football. Therefore, by rule, to me, he completes the process of the catch. He is down by contact. It is a catch. At the very worst, if you want to say he loses possession or Denver's, has the ball with him, then it would be a tie. Tie goes to the receiver. There was a very similar play in the Buffalo New England game. In what was that, week 15 with Khalil Shakir and a New England Patriots defender. Very similar situation. They both had their hands on the football. Again, tie goes to the receiver. It was called a catch by Buffalo. And what I do not understand about that situation on Saturday is Sean McDermott called timeout because he was trying to get an official review. Because, of course, we were in overtime, there were no challenges, all replays come from upstairs. There was no official review. They immediately confirmed the interception and it went right to Denver football. I did not feel like that was right. Even the play last night with Devontae Adams in the Bears game, clearly knee down with possession, completes the process of the catch. Even on that play, they went to an official review, and that wasn't even close, unlike this play here in Denver on Saturday. So, yes, Buffalo has underachieved. I picked the Bills to win the game. Josh Allen's turnovers and the James Cook fumble, did it cost them the game? Yes. Could Josh Allen have hit Dalton Kincaid at the end of regulation to win the game and he missed him? Yes, absolutely. Was there a holding call in the end zone on Buffalo that could have been called and a Denver safety, which would have never got us to the point and Denver would have won the game? Yes, absolutely. But that is to my point of again, in the postseason, the officials have been letting a lot of contact go. And so to decide the game, essentially, on a pass interference call that wasn't egregious, there were certainly worse pass interference calls I thought earlier in the game that could have been called on both teams. And those weren't called. That is my problem with the way the officiating went down on Saturday was it was inconsistent and in my opinion cost somebody his job. Now I do think Brian Dable, if you guys did listen to my NFL coaching carousel special that I did on Saturday, where I broke down at the time there were 9 NFL job openings. Of course, you have out of the AFC North, Ravens, Steelers, Browns. You have out of the AFC East, the Dolphins. You have out of the AFC West, the Raiders. You have out of the AFC South, the Titans. Out of the NFC East, Giants. Oh, excuse me. We know a finalized head coaching deal with John Harbaugh. You have the Arizona Cardinals out of the NFC West, and you have the Atlanta Falcons who have finalized a deal with Kevin Stefanski out of the NFC South. Now, do I think that Kevin Stefanski or John Harbaugh are going to back out of the Giants or Falcons job to take the Buffalo job? I do not. I do think, again, Brian Dable knows the system. He's been a head coach before. Josh Allen had a lot of praise for him. And who knows, maybe they keep Joe Brady as an offensive coordinator, or maybe Joe Brady moves somewhere else. Maybe they merge the systems. I don't know how that would work. But in my opinion, now obviously it's not going to happen so quickly because the Bills do have to feel the Rooney rule, which again, I'm sorry. To me, I get wanting to promote diversity and different backgrounds and all that, but to me, needing to interview 2 minority candidates when they have no shot at the job is just not the intention of the rule. And to me, Brian Dable is without a doubt the number one candidate on the Bills roster, bar none. I think there's only really 2 candidates, Brian Dable and Joe Brady. I think they're going to go in a different direction. Sean McDermott's been able to build that defense, and who knows, maybe they do keep Bobby Babbage, who's done a great job there in Buffalo as their defensive coordinator. But, is Sean McDermott Tony Dungy in Tampa, where they just needed John Gruden to come in, get that team over the top? Is he Gary Kubiak in Denver, where, John Fox got fired. Gary Kubiak has to come in and win them the Super Bowl. What's ironic in both of those situations, both of those teams had defensive head coaches. They went to an offensive head coach. They won the Super Bowl with the veteran quarterbacks. Josh Allen, I would say now going in, I believe year 9 would be a veteran quarterback, going from a defensive head coach to an offensive head coach. Brandon Beane gets to stay as the general manager. I gotta tell you what, the Denver Bronco injury to Bo Nix was obviously devastating, but I am not counting Denver out with Jarrett Stidham. I mean, this could be a Nick Foles situation. Sean Payton, as much as I don't like him, as much as I think sometimes he's, a grumpy guy who thinks he's the smartest guy in the room and berates reporters and thinks that he's this boy genius coach. There's no denying that he's a good offensive coach. They obviously have a top defense with Vance Joseph. And now that the Houston Texans are out of the playoffs, I think you can make the argument that Denver, certainly in the AFC, in my opinion, has the best defense, especially with that pass rush with Nick Benito and crew, Patrick Surtain on the back end. It's going to be very interesting to see, can Kayshon Boutte, Douglas, Hunter Henry, can they get open against that Denver secondary? But I think Jared Stidham, he's been with Sean Payton a long time. He has NFL experience. I think Sean Payton's going to call a good game, and I think that Denver's going to use his bulletin board material. That it is a foregone conclusion that New England's going to win this game. Don't be surprised if Denver does pull off the upset in the AFC Championship game. So let's talk about Patriots Texans, and then we'll go back to the NFC side. CJ Stroud obviously played terrible. If the Texans got any more production on offense, which I do think the loss of Dalton Schultz early on in the game, especially without Nico Collins, it just made it really hard for that Texans offense to move the ball against the Patriots. Along with the Chargers, you could tell Houston just could not block New England. The Patriots could have called cover zero all day and got turnovers. That's not going to be the case with this Denver Bronco team. And let's face it, Drake May threw a beautiful ball to Kayshon Boutte there to essentially win the game. But Drake May in these 2 playoff games has not played extraordinarily well. He's been hot on a couple drives. He's been very inconsistent on a lot of others. Will Campbell got beat constantly on Sunday by the likes of Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson, multiple strip sacks on Drake May. To me, and New England has never won in Denver in their history. I look at this matchup, and again, I thought Houston's defense was a bad matchup for New England's offense. And I believe I was right on that. It was just that the Texans' offense was even a worse matchup for the New England Patriots defense. And, without their two best weapons, CJ Stroud really could not move the ball. He was turning the football over. He was seeing ghosts. It was just not meant to be for the Houston Texans. I do think that even with a significant quarterback advantage, this is actually a bad matchup. And if Jared Stidham plays well, I would say be very careful. Mike Vrabel has done a great job, a better job than I even thought he would do in New England. There's a real chance in year one that Vrabel takes the Patriots to the Super Bowl, which this is a roster that still needs offensive line pieces. I would argue still needs wide receiver pieces. I would argue still needs another tight end. I would argue still needs another defensive end. Still needs another safety. Like there are pieces on this roster that I think they could still even get better at. With Drake May on a rookie contract, which is very scary going forward. But as I have said constantly throughout this postseason, progression in the NFL is not linear. And for these teams, for New England, for Denver, and for Seattle, these teams with young quarterbacks, and Sam Darnold's obviously more of a veteran, but I mean, Seattle just feels like they sort of came out of nowhere to me. Take advantage of your window because you never know when you're going to get back. And then for the Rams side of things, this may be your last shot with Matthew Stafford. Who knows? If they win the Super Bowl, he may decide to walk away. But let's talk about now on the NFC side, the opening kickoff by Raheed Shaheed, which John Schneider has done an excellent job rebuilding this roster in the post-Pete Carroll era, which more looks like day by day. John Schneider was right to win that power struggle. The Pete Carroll has been completely out of date, and it was time. And they stepped with a defensive mind. A lot of people are actually calling the defensive-minded Sean McVay in Mike McDonald, and they decided to move off Geno Smith and replace him with Sam Darnold. But I think the biggest addition for Seattle, it was not Raheed Shaheed. I don't even think it was Mike McDonald as head coach. I do not think it was Sam Darnold as quarterback. I think it was Quint Kubiak as the offensive coordinator because that system is the perfect system for Sam Darnold. They would run the football with both Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. Play action off of it. Jackson Smith and Jigba has emerged this year as a number one wide receiver, and that defense, Mike McDonald is taking care of his side of the ball. Young, cheap, Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams, or excuse me, Demarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams. Up front, Demarcus Lawrence has been a great addition coming over from the Dallas Cowboys. They are getting pressure after the quarterback. And again, in the secondary with Tariq Woolen, Devin Witherspoon, Julian Love. Very young. They're very physical. And Mike McDonald has them playing very well. They were blanketing San Francisco offensively, who Christian McCaffrey got a stinger early. But it really did not matter. Listen, I thought the Niners were going to have more success against Seattle because I thought Kyle Shanahan, with 2 weeks to prepare coming off that game in week 18, I thought that offense would have some new wrinkles for Seattle. It's a division rival. I thought they would play close. And after the opening kickoff by Raheed Shaheed, I knew I was wrong. And it didn't matter if Sam Darnold had an oblique injury or not. The route was on from that point forward. San Francisco just looked like they never woke up. Seattle was the more physical team. They took it to them, and they deserve this spot in the NFC Championship game. Now, for Rams Bears, I mean, obviously, the throw by Caleb Williams at the end of the game was A plus plus. It will be played back in time forever. And then obviously he makes a mistake, whether you want to blame DJ Moore, whether you want to blame Caleb Williams or not. That's what happened. And again, the Bears, all like the Patriots, right, had a very successful season. Nobody really thought the Bears would make it this far. A home game, the number two seed in the divisional round, go to overtime with maybe the favorite to even start the season more so than my Eagles to make it out of the NFC in the Los Angeles Rams, who have barely survived at this point, the Panthers and the Bears, but they've done so not only because of timely defense, not only because of the greatness of Sean McVay as head coach, but because they have faced off against two young quarterbacks in Bryce Young and Caleb Williams, and they have a veteran quarterback in Matthew Stafford who has made the plays more so than those two young quarterbacks in the clutch. And I said going into the game, a lot of people liked the Bears because of the cold and they were going to be able to run the football. I think the cold, personally, is overrated. I think that snow and rain and the weather decide things more than the cold, which, unlike in that New England game where it was really snowing, it was hard to grip the football. In the Chicago game, it was more the cold than the weather. It was just mostly flaking. I mean, you could see part of the field was obviously covered, but it wasn't enough, I don't think, to affect a lot of the throws. Maybe the wind a little bit. But these guys are football players. I know there was a lot of concern about the LA team being in hoodies when it was 70 degrees and going to Chicago, but these guys are football players. You move around. They've been in the cold. They went to a snowstorm last year in Philadelphia, so they are used to this a little bit. And I do think that this Rams team had Seattle up 14 with 8 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, excuse me, up 16. And they obviously blew the game. There was the weird backwards pass that went to the 2 point conversion. But this was a game that everybody thought was destined on the NFC calendar. We didn't know if it was going to be a wild card matchup, a divisional round matchup, or an NFC championship game. It turns out it's the latter. But my gut right now tells me that it is a Patriots Rams Super Bowl, but I'll make my official picks on Thursday after I have a couple days to think about it. What a weird Final Four. The NFL is essentially at this point going back to the 2016 season. Remember Super Bowl 50? We had Patriots out Broncos in the AFC Championship game. Guess what we have this year? Patriots Broncos in Denver for the AFC Championship game to go to Super Bowl 60, which was in Levi Stadium, the home of the Niners in Santa Clara. Super Bowl 60 is in Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, the home of the San Francisco 49ers. We saw Seattle in Super Bowl 49 take on the Patriots. We saw the Rams in Super Bowl 53 take on the Patriots. And obviously, Brady's first Super Bowl, which, if I'm right, was Super Bowl 36. So if the Patriots win the Super Bowl, we will have a rematch there. If Denver and Seattle win, it will be a rematch of Super Bowl 48. So the only way we don't get a rematch that we haven't seen before in the Super Bowl is going to be if Seattle, or excuse me, if the Rams take on Denver, which I still think is a possibility. Um, Patriots have won the Super Bowl. Seattle has won the Super Bowl. The Rams have won the Super Bowl. Denver has won the Super Bowl. I thought it's been a weird year in the NFL. I thought maybe it was the year for like the Texans and the Bears or the Bills and the Bears. I wanted some fresh blood in the Super Bowl. I just think this could be, especially if it's like Sam Darnold against Jared Stidham. I think the worst outcome for all of us is if we have Seattle against Denver in the Super Bowl. At least from a quarterback perspective, I would love to see the two MVP candidates, Drake May, Matthew Stafford, go at it head to head, as I think that would be a fantastic game. But when it comes to my money line picks and best bets, real quick, I wanted to tell you that unfortunately, as you guys know, as I already mentioned, I did pick Seattle and the Rams right, so I got the NFC side right, and I got the AFC side wrong. I thought it was going to be the Bills going to Houston. Instead, it's going to be New England going to Denver. The two top seeds in that conference. The only road team to win this weekend was the Rams on Sunday night. In terms of best bets, again, I had Buffalo minus 1.5. did not get. I thought the Seahawks were going to win, but I thought it was going to be too many points, especially with the Sam Darnold injury. So I took San Francisco +7. I thought Houston +3 was the side. I did get the Bears right, +3.5. I said the Rams are going to win, but I thought in Chicago, the Bears were going to fight to the end. When it was 17-10 in the fourth quarter, I think we all said the Bears got them right where they want them. Now the Bears obviously have to learn how to win and play with a lead. But I went 1 for 4 in best bets, which puts us at 56 for 99 on the year. My dream of going 60% on the season in best bets is over. The best I could probably do now if I go 3 for 3 with the AFC and NFC championship games and the Super Bowl would be 59 for 102. Um, which may be just enough to get us there at 58, 59%. So the pressure is really on. In terms of the money line, last year I ended up winning. Hold on. Let me tell you real quick. I believe it was 198 games total in the money line. This year, the best I could do would be 100 and would be 192. So 6 games off of that, going 2-2. We were on a real good pace to start the season. The back half of the season, in my opinion, a lot of upsets, a lot of struggles. I really struggled week 9 throughout because I thought the NFL was going to reshape itself. I thought Buffalo was going to get back on track. I thought Baltimore was going to get back on track. I did not expect Seattle, to continue this way to get to the number 1 seed. I thought Green Bay was going to get back on track with Jordan Love. I did not expect Denver to get the 1 seed in the AFC. I thought the Chiefs were going to make a run at it, win out, and potentially go to the Super Bowl. And obviously, all those things did not happen. So it's been a different year in the NFL. It's been a defensive year in the NFL. We have Mike Vrabel and Mike McDonald, the two Mikes being the defensive coaches, Sean McDermott, Sean Payton, the two Seans being the offensive coaches. I will remind you that we have not had a defensive head coach in the Super Bowl since Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots in Super Bowl 53 when they took on Sean McVay and the Rams. The last defensive coach to not beat Belichick in the Super Bowl would be Dan Quinn, Super Bowl 51 with the Atlanta Falcons. Before that, it was Ron Rivera in Super Bowl 50 with the Carolina Panthers. So it's been a long time. The last defensive head coach to win a Super Bowl, not named Belichick, would then be Super Bowl 48 when Pete Carroll did it. So it's been a long time, obviously, but it's been a shifting of the guard, and we'll see. And, it's going to be very exciting. Again, we're going to officially make our picks on Thursday. But I do feel bad for Sean McDermott. There's, 10 openings now. Obviously, 2 have been filled with Kevin Stefanski and John Harbaugh. I do not think any of those 2 will go back on their word. If I had to guess, Brian Dable becomes the new head coach of Buffalo. And if you want to see my other predictions for who could be the head coaches in these places, again, I thought Dable, spoiler alert, was going to be the head coach in Tennessee. I now think that job will go for him in Buffalo. I keep hearing Matt Nagy will be the new head coach in Tennessee, with Eric Bieniemy coming back as offensive coordinator in Kansas City. But if you want to see the rest of my picks, make sure to check out the Brandin World NFL Coaching Carousel that aired this past Saturday. I feel bad for Sean. I do think that play by Brandin Cooks was a catch. I hate the NFL inconsistent officiating. I hate that we have to talk about the officials this late in games of the season. Again, I'm not an NFL conspiracy theory guy, but there's been a lot of things wrong about the NFL at the end of games this year, and we are here with no disrespect to these 4 teams, but this might be the worst field of 4 and the least hyped I've been about the field of 4 in a long time as we head down the stretch for the 2025 NFL season. Like that clip from the Brandin World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brandin World podcast right here on YouTube.